Welcome to the Grit Growth Podcast. Commit to conquer, lead your life, leave a legacy, gather your grit, and let's get after it.
So Jeremy, when I told him kind of what I was doing with the podcast, he recommended you immediately. He highly recommended you to come on and talk about your journey, both in life and in the fitness industry and running your own business. So we're really excited to talk with you about that and hear some of your story and your background and hopefully provide some value to anybody who wants to listen.
Okay, sounds good. Similarly, Jeremy told me about you and told me about, what you were doing, fill me in like your philosophy and all that stuff, and definitely attracted my attention. My business / philosophy is the idea that anybody can do anything. So like that and grit just kind of felt like it went hand in hand. So I was like, definitely would do anything for Jeremy, and then it felt like a good opportunity just to speak on some stuff with like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I thought too when I saw your mantra, your tagline. Really, it's in the business name. Exactly, it's very symbiotic with grit, and it's exactly what we were hoping to talk about. So, with that being said, do you want to just kick it off with a little bit of background on why you decided on the fitness industry and personal training as far as a career path? And we're trying to keep this season somewhat entrepreneurial focused, although we all kind of firmly believe that the entrepreneurial side goes hand in hand with your physical health as well, of course, and it's they feed off of each other. But we're trying to focus the conversation at least on business for now, but obviously it'll bleed into fitness, and that's totally fine. So if you want to just kind of kick it off with how you got going on the business side of things.
Gotcha. So I'm pretty much a lifelong athlete. Always been, again, in the sports realm and all that kind of stuff. The most confident I have ever felt in life and ever feel in life has always been surrounded by when I've been doing athletics and when I've been in a sport and when I've been able to do something where I felt like I had a lot of control over. And so when you think about from a sports side of things, as well as just from an overall fitness and health part of things, it's something that you can control in life. And it's not many things I think that people always feel that way about, but like, again, your health, your fitness, you can do that. When I identified that, it just kind of made me feel like I was having like a missing link. So I thought, I'm a track athlete. I went to the University of Florida and was running track and field there. I did my pretty much my years there, ended with a national championship in 2010, and I wanted to go pro, but unfortunately,
go Gators, baby! Sorry, I just gotta
always.
Stop. Go Gators! National championship! Heck yeah!
Awesome.
Okay, keep going.
Right. So I had a kind of like a choice of, am I going to pursue track and field as a professional, or am I going to, find another thing to be a professional in? And so unfortunately, the only thing I don't like about track, I love my sport, but as far as for like a career, either you're like a top guy, or you're like a top tier guy, or you don't make money at all. So like if you are a track athlete that's like not in the top two, not even top three, like if you're top two people in your specific race, you pretty much are working and running. And so I was like, man, I don't even want to grind out and do that. So let me figure out something else to do. We had a bunch of pro athletes that trained with us throughout my college days. So I saw what the ground was going to be like, and it wasn't like what I wanted to do. So again, with fitness and with the idea of health and just being able to be in control of things, it made me want to be in a career where I would be able to help others and instill in confidence with them and help them to figure out they have some control over different things in their life. So outside of just being a trainer, I'm a school counselor. So you can see my background, all that stuff. I'm in my office right now. And so I finished undergrad, went to grad school to get my degrees in order to go to be a school counselor. And as I jumped back into counseling, love working with kids, but I felt like I was missing that piece of me when I think about athletics, when I think about fitness, when I think about overall just how much of an impact health and training had on my life. And so it made me go and pursue that more. So first I was just coaching within my school, and then I wanted to branch out even more than that and be able to reach more athletes outside of just the ones that are walking around my school. And it again made me get to the point where I was like, man, I need to start something. I need to do something on my own and really put this into practice of what I believe. And so when I go back to the idea of anybody can do anything, in college, I was at a real low point, and the one thing I had was athletics, and it was the one thing I was good at. University of Florida is a great school, and we know how hard it could be as far as with the curriculum. And I struggled in my I'm a first generation college student, so I struggled in my first year there as well as my sophomore year there, and going into like halfway through my sophomore year, I was like, something has to change. And so when I turned back to fitness and turned back to really honing in on running and how that was like a motivating factor to me, it helped me to put things back in perspective and help me to understand that, all right, if I can do all this stuff as an athlete, I got to be able to do something from an academic standpoint as well. I can't just be so good in one arena and not have anything in the other arena. And so I came up with that. Like that was that's where the mantra originated from. It was the idea that, man, I'm this great person in track and field, great athlete. And if I can do this, why can't I transfer this? Or why isn't this translating to my academics? And for my answer, it was like, it can transfer, it can translate. I just have not believed in myself in this arena. And I believed in myself in sports all the time, but I never had believed in myself in anything else because I always separated it. And so when I stopped the idea of separating it and just like, all right, the confidence that you have when you step on the track and you step in the classroom, and do the same thing. And when I went into my classes and my courses and my work from that standpoint, it changed everything. Like literally, I went from having like a 1.5 GPA to a 3.2 GPA. And it was literally from the idea of, man, I have to be able to, there's no way I can't do this. Even though it was hard, even though it felt like out of my realm, there was no way I couldn't do this when I put my mind to it. And so with that happening, and then with me turning my whole pretty much college career around from the academic standpoint and being able to go into grad school when I thought I was going to drop out of college, it just kind of had me with this idea that, man, this could apply to anyone doing anything. If I can get them to believe in themselves from a fitness standpoint, from a building your health, building your fitness, building your body, building your athleticism, building your ability to perform in sports, I can help them to see how that translates to their other areas of their life as well. And so, especially with kids, it just started playing hand in hand because most kids want to play sports anyways or have their sports dream anyways. And so it just, again, was a perfect combination. I wanted to touch on something, but I slipped my mind as I was talking. Oh, and so also from the fitness standpoint, when you think about health, when you think about fitness, that's like everybody's Achilles heel, it feels like nobody feels like they can get in shape for real.
Right.
And so, but as I was saying, when at the onset of this, like it's one thing that you really can't control. And like if you put in the work when you go into the weight room, when you go into the gym, point A is always going to lead to point B. And so, you put in the work in the gym, if you're eating right, whatever you're doing, like if you do this stuff, it's always going to yield the same result. It's never going to be like something where point A and now you're still at point A, part 2 or whatever. You're going to get to point B as long as you're doing and following the routine. And so it's just something that made putting goal setting and making the plan and the action and being able to see how that carries through. And yeah, it was just a perfect combination for me of how I could explain that in a way to the youth I was working with and help them to connect with something when they wasn't always connecting with what I was talking about in relation to school.
Right. Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's one of my main things that I want to get out there and get people to pick up on with grit is that the skills are transferable. I mean, you nailed it when you said that everything you were doing in fitness, you just had to like flip a switch to be able to apply it to academics and other areas of your life.
Right.
And that's 100% true. I mean, I think that people that are disciplined in school could flip that switch and apply it to their health as well if they choose. It's all about choices. So right. I'm really glad you touched on that.
I think the other side, if I can jump in, is that confidence, and listening to you where you had confidence in one, you flip the switch in the discipline. Absolutely. But you said, you know what? Why can't I do well here? This is ridiculous. I'm great over here on the track. Why can't I have that same confidence and level of commitment, discipline, accountability on the academic side? Look how hard I train on the track. Guess what? I probably need to train that hard in the classroom. Mm-hmm. Are you putting in the same hours? And it to me, that's what I kind of heard you almost saying is like, right. I realized that I had almost trained the same way academically that I was physically at the track, and committed to both versus one.
Right, exactly, and that was the truth. Before I got to college, school just came natural to me. It was always easy, and I never had to work hard, and I was always getting good grades. When I had to work hard to get the good grades, in my mind, I didn't get a good grade, and so I just wasn't good at it, and I was scared to put in the effort. I wasn't confident, as you're saying, in it. But once I started putting that same effort and the same commitment, as you said before, that I was on with track with my academic part of my life with being in college, things did change. And so, yeah, and I think for a lot of us, we do miss that. Like some things we are just naturally gifted at, or we know that we put in the work, what the end result will be. And so we are willing to put in the work with that, but we're not committed to other things in our lives because we have failed at it, or, we just are not getting as good of results. And it makes us back off and lose our confidence in that part. And so we don't move forward in it. And so, yeah, as I like what Carson said in the sense of flipping the switch. A lot of us have to flip the switch in other areas in our lives because we leave it off because we just aren't as confident, or we have had some run-ins with obstacles or adversity, and we just say, all right, I'm just going to set this down and I'm going to go to we're comfortable with what we're good at. And so we're going to of course, lean into that. And so, yeah, that's something that happened with me and something I see with my kids every day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely have a tendency to retreat back to the comfort zone and, it's human nature. I think it's a defense mechanism, to a certain extent, just going back to
be comfortable
evolution. Right. It's exactly. Seek comfort and avoid getting eaten or whatever. But now, we have to do the opposite on purpose, or else we'll just get complacent. Yeah. Absolutely. So I wanted to touch on one little snapshot in time there that you just talked about, which was basically you had been, college level athlete, which is obviously, it's got to be in the top 1% of athletics, athleticism in general. And you're doing that for 3 or 4 years, right, on the track. And then all of a sudden you realize this is not for you and you need to pivot. This is not for you permanently, at least not at the professional level, right? You need to pivot and do something else. Can you just talk about that for a second? What was the, deciding factor? What kind of courage did it take for you to make that switch? And did you always know that, education was where you wanted to go, or how did you make that transition?
So I did. So that was a very trying time in my life because, for most athletes, we think we're going to go pro, or we don't really have a plan B other than going pro. And so around the time that I was starting to consider if I was going to go pro or not, I started meeting with my life skills coordinator in college. So, you have your academic advisor, and then the athletes, we have what is called like a life skills coordinator. And so I started meeting with him, and, he's used to it. So he has all kinds of athletes that always come to him like, hey, I'm not going pro. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so he was sitting down with me, and like, it took a good 2-3 months, but we sat down and went through, the reasons behind me wanting to be a professional athlete, or what I was looking to get out of, again, this sport, and even just being a professional in general. And one common theme that we both came up with is when I was looking back at stuff was that I wanted to be a role model to like younger generations. I had never thought about teaching, working in a school or anything like that, but I know I wanted to have an impact on those under me. Even when I was coming up, when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, there were always kids that looked up to me because I was always, again, this star of an athlete, star of a person that they wanted to be like. And so, funny story about that. So, no, let me not lose my train of thought. So, from that standpoint, I knew that I liked having an impact on others because I wanted them to be able to do better or even more than I do, or even just to see that, coming from what your upbringing is and all that kind of stuff doesn't determine what your life outcome would be, or doesn't determine what you're going to do in life. And so, going back and forth with him a lot, he was just saying, you don't all only have to be an athlete to do that. It's different arenas or different careers you can be in where you can still be this role model to kids and be in the face of kids, and they, have a real relationship with them that will impact them in a positive way. And, just going back and forth over things. I had never had someone sit down and talk to me before. And so even my interaction with him helped me to solidify my decision, because on a college level, pretty much a school counselor on a college level would be an academic advisor or a life skills coordinator. And so, like, I'll never forget him. His name was Mr. Woodruff. But all my life, that was the first time somebody had ever sat down with me and actually went through things with me about what I could do in life outside of, man, you're just a good athlete. You should just stick with this. Don't worry, you're gonna do good things like that. Literally, anybody that's ever talked to me, ever jumped on my bandwagon or anything like that, it was always in the realm of, oh, you're gonna be somebody from an athletic standpoint. So, high school football, track and field, all kinds of sports, and then of course went to college for track and field. But it was always from that standpoint. And so it became literally my identity. There was nothing else in my identity other than, I'm going to be this great athlete. I'm going to be this pro athlete. I'm going to go pro. I'm going to go pro.
Yeah.
And so that him sitting down with me and actually helped me to identify that, I was more than that. Even just, him pointing out stuff like, hey man, you turned your life around on the academic arena. And I was just doing it just to, not want to drop out of school. But he was just saying like,
keep running.
Yeah. Like you already are showing that you have more identity than just being an athlete. And so, but like literally that was the first time that anybody had ever sat down and talked to me. And it wasn't from a standpoint of this is who you are as this, one track minded athlete, you're going to go pro. And that's pretty much it in life. And so when that happened, it floored me in the first place because it didn't feel like he wasn't getting anything out of me with that. He wasn't, trying to help me to get on his new team or, he wasn't trying to recruit me to do anything. It was literally just me and wanting the best for me. And I don't know, I just fell in love with that. And it helped me to want to be in front of younger students / kids and be able to do that, have that similar impact. Because what I'm gonna say, I was maybe 22 at that time, 22, 23. And literally for 22 or 23 years, nobody ever did that. And so I don't know, it was a very powerful moment in my life because again, I just had never had that happen. And I wanted to make that type of, or have that type of influence with others or with, again, a younger generation. My side story, because I'm done with that part, but my side story is that I didn't make it pro in track and field, but kids that grew up with me ended up they were like, it was two kids in particular, but one went pro in football and one went pro in track and field. And actually got second last year in Worlds. And it was really interesting because like they would call me a role model or, be hitting me up like, hey, Mr. Wilson, man, I just want you to know that I'm doing this today, or can you come to my game today? And, I'm like, so this is this NFL player or this big track athlete. And I'm like, I'm just this regular guidance counselor person. But for them, like growing up, I was like the biggest thing out. So like for them, like they still see me as that person, even though they're doing much bigger things than me now. But it also just kind of confirmed the idea of, being a leader, being a role model, and understanding the impact that you have on those coming up underneath you. And they literally can do more and go further than you ever did just from the example that you set for them. And so it kind of solidified the idea of, I'm in the right spot and me impacting people at the level I am now. Though I'm not the man anymore, I'm not the athlete anymore, I'm still influencing and encouraging people to be their best. And I'm having a good stake in people's lives. I'm those good stakeholders in their lives that can, again, help them to reach their goals, help them to have, again, the anybody can do anything mindset. And even it goes beyond what I've been able to accomplish. And so, I don't know, I think about stuff like that in the sense of confirmation of that I'm doing the right thing right now.
So let's talk about passion. So much of grit is centered around a passion. And if you had to scale your passion, right, you had the athletics and track and field, and there was a passion for that. You have now really, in the lives of kids' growth, their advancement, their progression, there's a passion for that. If you had to put 1 to 10 on each one of those, how would you scale them? How would you rate, what you're doing now versus being the track star and that passion to be a track star?
The track star passion maybe like a 7 or 8. What I'm doing now is a 10.
You're right where you should be.
Yeah, I'm where I'm supposed to be. The only part that I was missing is that and why, again, I have my own business, I want to be a more full-time in the role of a sports performance coach, is that I was missing the athletics piece. I love the athletics piece, and it is a big part of my life. And I feel like I get even more passionate about working with kids, especially when I work with kids and help them to be able to realize their, levels of athleticism, or being able to realize just how good they are as far as like from a standpoint of, athletic performance. And so that definitely is something that is always in the back of my mind, is always something that's pulling at me from the athletic standpoint. But hands down, working with youth, working with young adults and all that kind of stuff, like, even from, for the most part, I work from 8-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And hands down, it's a 10 compared to when it was me. I was 7, 8. I wanted to be good and this and that, but it wasn't like make or break, this is my life thing. And I realized that once I was able to leave it behind, that it wasn't a passing on a level of 10 for me with sports and with any sports, not just with track and field, but with any sport I did. It's never been like a passing of like a 10. It was just something I was good at, something I was able to show off my skill set with. But like, I will go back for a kid in a minute. Like, I really love working with kids. I really love being able to bring the most out of them, the best out of them.
Yeah. So is that something that your life, what was the guidance counselor guy?
Mr. Woodruff.
Woodruff, and they called it a life coach.
Life skills coordinator.
Life skills coordinator. So was that something, the differentiation between the passion levels, basically you boil it down to helping people through your athleticism lens, that's the 10. And then basically just maximizing your own potential, that's the 7, 8. Was that something that you realized then in talking with Mr. Woodruff, or is that like retrospectively now you can sit back and see that from a self-awareness perspective?
I think from a self-awareness point is now, because it gets more, how you step into a role and then you are uncertain about it, and then you get more and more confirmation that this is where you're supposed to be. So the 10 is now. I think when I was speaking with Mr. Woodruff, what I always felt is like, how you have this feeling, like you probably have it about grit, that this is something that is going to change lives. This is something that I'm supposed to be doing. And that was the feeling that I had with Mr. Woodruff, but I didn't have the confirmation of that yet. This was a feeling like, this is what I want to do.
Right.
I think now it's been more fully realized, and I'm more aware of it. And so now it's more so just building on what I've already have started.
Gotcha. All right. So another question on while we're on that same train of thought. So when you went to speak with Mr. Woodruff, did you have to seek him out and ask for his guidance, or was it like a regularly scheduled meeting where he just meets with all the athletes, once a month?
One of my teammates who had graduated previously told me that I needed to go see him, and that if I wasn't sure about going pro in track, I need to go sit down and talk with him. And so I was just seeing him randomly, actually. He didn't, we may have met a couple of other times, but it was like general stuff. It was scheduling classes. It wasn't like let's sit down and talk about life and what you're doing next.
Gotcha. So, and now again, retrospectively, if you wouldn't have had that conversation, do you think you'd be where you are right now?
No. I probably, I don't know what I'd be doing, actually. I probably would.
You had a probably in there.
I could be like, when thinking about that now, and thinking about that even from then, I've thought about it previous times as well. I literally could be doing anything and be very unhappy or feel very miserable because I would have felt like I wasted my time all that time playing sports and not even understanding how much of that was supposed to get me to where I'm in today. If I would have just said, I wasn't going pro in my sport, let me just get a job and start working. And
right.
So talking with him, it definitely was a life-changing moment in the sense of what the direction of my life was going to go, or the trajectory of my life was going to go after college. Because even again, I got teammates, and a lot of them aren't really doing, I think, maximizing their potential, and it's because they stopped running, or even they went pro and then it didn't work out as well, and then they just went and got a job to make sure they make ends meet, make sure they can pay bills. Right. And I think meeting with him helped me to not be in a situation where I just wanted to get a job to pay some bills, and I was actually able to find something that I was even more passionate about than, again, the sport that I was participating in at the time.
Yeah, well, it kind of enlightened you, a level of conscientiousness to then find purpose,
right,
and ultimately passion.
Yep.
And where you're at now, and so when you talk, a lot of what we're talking about now is the entrepreneurship side of it. So you're within the school system, but you're also trying to start your own business. What's it like working on your own business, and trying to get that up and going and off the ground?
So it's easy. It's easy when somebody's doing stuff for you. What I've figured out as an entrepreneur is that you're learning everything new for the first time with everything that you do, and you're making mistakes, but you feel like you got to learn to fail forward. And so I live in South Florida, and so this is not the community I was raised in. I'm from Orlando originally, and so I really had to start from scratch as far as like building a business outside of the school. And so it started with a lot of my former athletes that went to college, them coming back and training me, and it has turned into more so, whether through word of mouth recommendations, whether through just trying to market, I've been able to build a little bit of a name or a brand for myself down here, and now it's starting to pick up. But I mean, it's a grind, like, coming and getting people in, having something that is systematic. Yeah, I would stay with her. Having a systematic approach to building a business and building a clientele has been, I think, my toughest part of the learning curve of what I needed. So good performance coach, and I can help people get to their results, and that's the part I like. But the part that I have had more struggles with, and what I am working on and working through now, is probably going to take years and years for me to work through, is, again, that systematic approach to what I'm doing, so that, yeah, we're getting people through the door and we're getting athletes to ultimately reach their goals of what they want to be as far as from a sports performance standpoint. But there's a lot of stuff to do beforehand to get them to that point and to get them there. And so learning that part, learning also, again, from having a salary and having everything work out for you, whether I go to work or whether I don't go to work, I get paid as a school counselor.
Right.
My entrepreneurial stuff, everything I do, it literally depends on what I'm getting up to do that day. If I don't get up and do nothing that day, I'm not gonna make money that day. And so having that realization has kind of been like dawning on me, in the sense of like, okay, this is really my life I'm putting on the line here. Like, my livelihood, every day I have to get up and I have to make sure that I'm bringing in enough business. I may have to make sure not even just the repeat business for the people I have, but that I'm constantly growing and constantly reaching more people. Because, if I don't do that, then I'm not going to grow, and I can't just depend on where I'm at today to be, sustainable for tomorrow, as far as like enough for tomorrow to continue to whether it's paying bills or even just to be able to expand and have I'm in like more of a boutique setting right now, but being able to be in a larger setting when I'm training athletes, and having this vision, having these dreams of what I want to do and building that out. It starts with what I'm doing today, and it's like I have to focus on not just the athletes I have now, but bringing in new athletes, bringing in new even classes. So like, it went from me only training like youth athletes to like, now I train adults. I have adult sports performance classes. I have the youth classes. I have college classes. I have like a whole bunch of different stuff, because I had to diversify and I had to continue to build out in order to have something that, again, will last. I think also as an entrepreneur, it turns from just something being a dream to, all right, so there's some nuts and bolts that you have to do every day in order to make this a reality. And the nuts and bolts pieces of it is the most important pieces versus, the big idea of the dream that you have or what you want this to be. So that's been what I've been learning the most as far as the entrepreneurial side, outside of the school.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. There's a really good book. It's called Traction, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's got basically a universal, they call it an entrepreneurial operating system. It's supposed to be able to take any business and basically apply these the systems part that you're talking about, apply these systems, and it's anything from construction to retail to realtor to personal fitness. It's an applicable system. So that might be something interesting for you to look into, because you can download like forms right off of their website, so you don't have to recreate the wheel and create your own form.
Right.
So it might be something. Anyway, it's called Traction. It's good. It's short. It's pretty quick read. It's not like a really super in depth, but anyway, might be something. Yeah, no problem. Might be valuable for you. And it's what you were talking about exactly. With you have this big vision. They talk about that a lot in the beginning. Typically, successful startup type companies, they'll have a visionary guy, and the counterpart to that is the integrator.
Right.
So that integration part is what you're talking about, is not your strong suit, but that could be the nuts and bolts. Exactly. So you're the visionary, big picture, grand ideas, and that's great because you need that too, right? But anyway, something to think about.
When I take a look at it, it seems like you're, at that other pivot point, right? Because you had the confidence in sports, and then you had to pivot to academics. You had to pivot to kind of say, okay, I'm not going to be professional. And then get that purpose and passion of the youth, but now you're kind of have to build that confidence as an entrepreneur to say, I can do this on my own without this salary, as a counselor, and then go make it every day for yourself. And it's like you're at that pivot point again of taking that leap outside of.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're
right, Matt.
Man, boom. Right there. We want to know when you make the leap. Just like on your Instagram account, your website. I mean, taking those lunging leaps with like weights on your shoulders. That's what you got right now, right?
Right. If this was as easy as that, I wish it came as easy as that for me. But it is a work in progress. And as you're saying, being confident and same exact thing, not backing down from it because it's harder. It's because it's not something that's coming natural for me, but also putting in the work and putting in the effort that I'm putting in with the leaps and bounds that I'm doing when I'm on the internet, when I'm, making these workouts and all this kind of stuff. You have to come with that same level of commitment and confidence that I do with that. And so I understand that, and I understand it's a work in progress. I think I just, from a standpoint of what we all at a certain degree want to be entrepreneurs, we have ideas of what we should do. And it's always like really interesting to figure out what it really is. And so I just had hit that point or what it really means.
Yeah.
And so, I just hit that point.
Well, and you're sitting there talking about that and grit to move forward, with the business. But I bet you 99.9% of the people that look at those photos of the lunges or the plank jacks or whatever else you got going on, but you're airborne, going, there's no way I can do that.
Right.
There's no way I can get there. There's no way I can make that happen. And they look at that and say, there's no way. And they don't even try. But I mean, kudos to you that you're in here trying. Like you're not only doing that stuff, right? The physical stuff, but you're in here on the business side of it, making it happen out there, with youth and just, ready to get after it. So, man, I appreciate you and your spirit.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Matt.
Oh, heck yeah. I got confidence in you.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I really like I know we talked about this a little bit already, but anybody can do anything.
Yes.
It strikes me. It's like, that's a really good tagline. It hits home. It's like it kind of emotional a little bit. And some of the research I've done is psychology based. A lot of it is about tenacity and hard work over time will be more effective than natural or raw talent. So you're tapping in, I think, to the psychology a little bit there with anybody can do anything. How do you approach when someone comes to you, and you're advertising that, right? Anybody can do anything. That's kind of a selling point. When somebody comes to you and they want to change, but they don't believe they can, like Matt was just saying, what's your psychological approach to that?
From a psychological standpoint, so as I started with, confidence is going to be, the biggest thing that we all lack in any new venture that we're trying to do. Anything that is something that we already have in our mind that we can't do it, it's confidence. And so what I do for anyone is that we're going to start at a level that we can build your confidence with where you're at. And so with fitness, that's going to be, if you're a beginner, all right, let's do this beginner workout, and we're going to start there, and you're going to see that on your first day, you might have been, let's do push-ups, because everybody, think about push-ups or even pull-ups. I do pull-ups. Let's do pull-ups. So 9 times out of 10, unless the person's already an athlete, has been in the gym, they usually struggle with pull-ups. And so I will start someone, and I would start them probably on the ground, and they will be doing a pull-up using a bar, and they're just pulling themselves up off the ground. Their feet are on the ground, they're not hanging or anything like that. And from week 1, I will do something where I'm starting you there, and I'm going to make that challenging for you. So I'm not going to make you feel like, oh, well, I can't do a real push-up, so this is not going to progress. I'm going to make doing a pull-up on the ground challenging for you. And what I would do from a person is like, I just always check in, like, you're doing this, you're doing a good job. But then from week to week, or even, usually by week to week, that's one of my funny things. My clients always say I give them exponential growth. Like it's not something where you're just going to jump from doing one thing and then it gets like a little harder and a little harder, like usually I get harder and harder. But anyways, I may start you there, and it may be that you have your knees bent and you're just pulling yourself up. Then I may have you have your legs straight and you're in a inverted position, you're doing the same pull-up. Then I may have your feet elevated on top of like a bench and you're doing the same pull-up, and you're doing it from there. Then I may have you actually be hanging from a bar and you're just pulling yourself up and holding yourself at the top and slowly coming back down. And So at each level, I will have that person doing that to a standpoint where I'll take them to the next thing, and then I'll have them go back to the first thing that we were doing, and they'll go to the first thing we're doing, and because they're doing something so much harder now, they'll do the first thing and be doing it easy, and I'll just I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm doing behind it, and from a psychological standpoint, so I'm like, man, you're pretty good at this now, and like literally, you'll be surprised how many people will just be like, man, yeah, you're right. I can't believe I can do this, and like not even reach the goal yet of being able to do pull-ups. But I will start you with the first thing, and you wouldn't be able to do that at all. And like, and it's usually pretty fast with the progress. So like it'll be 2-3 weeks, and they'll go back to do like I have them doing something else, but I'll push them back to the first thing again, just to kind of show them how much progress they're making, even if they don't see it in their body yet. Because everybody looks at their body and like, oh, but I still look the same, and whatever. So I'll take them back to that, and they'll be doing it, and they'll do it with ease, without complaining, without anything. And that first time they're gonna complain, and I'll be like, hey, so yeah, you just did that. I ain't have to coach you on it. I ain't have to root you on anything. You did that easy. They're like, yeah, I can do that all day now. I just don't like the new thing you're doing. And I'm like, so what does that mean? And they'll have that realization for themselves and make that connection. Like, man, I'm a different person already, and I've only been training with you for 3 weeks. And I'm like, yeah. And so just think about how this is going to continue to progress if you continue coming. And it's like so going back to what I was talking about, what I love about fitness is like one of the only things that I know for sure that I can just make that plan out, and it's going to happen in the way that it's supposed to happen. And so it's like you get people little wins, and you get people little wins, and you know how that works. You, from a psychological standpoint, if I can do something small, then I'm more confident to go and do something bigger. And I'm getting more confident I can do something bigger. And I get more confident I can do something greater and greater and greater. And so I get to the ultimate goal. And so the long story, because I know I just gave that big example, is that I will start somebody at where they're at, but I always help them to see almost as immediate as I can possible. I always want them to get back to that win of, this is where you started. And we haven't been training for that long. And where you started, you're already like miles away from that. And usually that is what will help people to kind of get to that standpoint of, all right, I'm sold. I'm here now. I can do this. And it's, again, I always say, even though I've never been like a body transformation coach or whatever the case would be, most people do come for like a transformation of the body. And I always kind of tell people, from an anybody can do anything standpoint, I don't care what you look like. I care what you can do. And so I tell them that because for a large and part of people, I think we sometimes have a misconception that we have to look a certain way, have a certain amount of money, have a certain amount of this before we're able to have access to the things that we are dreaming about. And usually that's not the case. Usually that's the fluff that's around everything. Usually you have what's inside of you. You have to use the word grit. You have that grit already. It's just revealing. It's just you need to have that revealed to you. And so I love to do that because, then I'll do something like that, and an athlete of mine or something like that will see another athlete, and the other athlete's like real buff and real big and real this and that, and they will be on the same level as one of my athletes that maybe look regular. And I always like to remind people of that. Like, yes, you do want to, we all want to have a nicer body. We all want to have, this certain look or whatever. And I think we can reach that goal, but don't get so caught up in reaching that goal that you don't realize that you have what you need and you already are where you need to be today, just from how you're training and how you approach your life today. And so, again, so as I'm training people, I just always try to make that connection and always try to get back to the idea of what's going to give you more confidence today versus having to go like, we're going to say a year or 9 months or 6 months before you ever to reach your body goal or whatever the case may be. I don't want you to be confident once you reach the body goal. I want you to get confident way before that. Right. And so I just kind of have that approach. I help people get gains and stuff where if you're saying that I never thought you would be able to do something that I could do, and maybe you don't get to the point where you are jumping over buildings or whatever the case may be, but you're going to do a lot more than you thought you could. And because you could do a lot more than you thought you could, it gives you that perception and that mindset that, all right, I could do anything too, and I can go a lot farther than where I'm at. And so, yeah, for me, I don't mind. I don't care where you're at as far as from a level of fitness or a level of athleticism or, how long you've been in the gym or doing anything else. Usually I'm going to, because I'm tailoring something to you, I'm going to help you to be able to see just how far you've come and that you can do what you think you can't just by, working with you. And checking in and giving you those small wins to get you to the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I want to know if you've gone back to your freshman and sophomore classes and looked at the coursework there to see how easy it is now.
It is. It really is. Listen, I was
Talk about confidence to be the entrepreneur, man. You gotta go back and say, man, look how easy that is now. Look how far I've come.
Right. When I think back about and so before I ever made this philosophy, I noticed that when I was in college. When I think back to how I was literally about to drop out of school and I was at a 1.5 GPA, and the stuff it wasn't so hard. It just wasn't easy. And it's because it wasn't easy, I just was like, oh, I can't do this. Why is this so hard? And so everything that ever went wrong, I like, you know how most people are, all right, I did better on tests. Let me go study in the library. Let me go get tutored. I didn't go do that. I just said, like, I guess I'm not going to be good in this class. I guess I'm going to fail the rest of it. And so a lot of stuff was just me doing self-fulfilling prophecy where I just started thinking that I wasn't going to do well. And so I didn't do well. And I didn't do it. I didn't do anything forth to help myself do better for the next test, to do better for the next assignment. And so, but again, it's an illustration of life. It's an illustration of what we all do in most things.
Right.
You feel like something, you just kind of retreat and say, oh, I guess I'm just going to do bad in this.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, you're teaching. I love your philosophy because you're teaching delayed gratification by just delaying it a little bit. You just the first delay is just a short, 2 or 3 week delay to give it a boost to get it started, and then maybe the next delay is more. But
it's the perspective you're giving them, and I love the look back. And you talk about business world stuff. You talk about kind of after action reviews, or again looking back at last year's numbers, or you got metrics so you can track and see things where you are. And I know you're tracking workouts, but to go back and say now do this what we did the first day, and to have them actually feel the difference. That's huge. That's very compelling for someone to go, oh to build that confidence in themselves. That's awesome, man. I'm loving it. I'm going to jump on that self-fulfilling prophecy too, because if they don't believe that after 3 weeks of working out, they don't see the difference in their body, right? Because you see very little difference in 3 weeks. I mean, you need months, to really see differences.
Exactly.
So after like a month, most people are like, I've been doing this, I don't see anything. You're right, quote unquote, see. So I'm never going to get there. So, self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to amount to an athlete. But without those tidbits that you're giving them, the confidence boosters, they would never, quote unquote, see it. Now they feel it to then see it a few months down the road.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Love it. All right.
When you got 10 employees, we can come back to this podcast.
Yeah.
When we start seeing the franchises out there, we'll be like, oh man, let's go back.
Let's go back. I would love to do the part 2 when that happens. Let me tell you guys how crazy of a time it's been.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm going to hold you to it.
That's right.
All right. Well, so it's been almost an hour already, and time flies when you're having fun. So basically, I want to, first of all, just say thank you. We appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I don't envy anybody that works with kids. That's definitely not my passion or strong suit at all. So that takes grit as well, even though we really didn't touch on that very much. I know that that's a grit intensive field there too. But so I appreciate you taking the time. And in closing, I just want to ask, what does grit mean to you?
What does grit mean to me? I think about it from the idea or the standpoint of what happens when you get hit in the mouth, or in other words, what happens when you face a failure? For me, grit is what happens next. Do you get back up? Do you keep pushing? Do you keep climbing? Do you, hit back? Whatever the case, like what's the next step of when something happens that was unexpected, that was adversity, that was an obstacle, that was a mountain, that was a valley, whatever it's going to be. I like the term grit because it's kind of it has the idea of being in the dirt and having to climb up out of the dirt to get to something. And for me, that's just a very powerful illustration when you even think about anything that you're going through in life, because we all are going to have things that are going to do just that. It's going to hit us in the mouth. It's going to knock us down. It's going to be a failure. It's going to be an obstacle. It's going to be adversity. And then what happens next? Because once you figure out what's happening next and you get back up and you start showing your grit, now we're going to see what life is really going to be about and how far we're going to go in life and how, we're going to really start living. We're going to really start getting to the meat and potatoes of what life is and how to live, I think, a fulfilling life. I think you are not even going to get to a point where you fulfill until you met with a challenge that you have to show grit through. Because when things are easy, you kind of take it for granted, and everything just kind of comes smooth and everything. And not that it's not good, not that things, aren't enjoyable, but until you hit a point where you have to show some grit, you haven't really got your hands dirty and really got into the, sinked your hand into, or sinked your fist into, I think, the meat and potatoes of life and what life is going to be. And so I really like I like what you guys are doing here. And I like the term grit just because of that's just the immediate illustration that comes to mind of getting knocked down, being in the dirt and having to get up and having to show something, what he's talking about, grit your teeth, what he's talking about, burying your teeth, whatever you were saying, it's going to show the type of person you are, the type of man you are, the type of person you are, period, and how you're going to move forward. I think life starts when that happens.
Yeah. Prove to yourself, do you have what it takes?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yep. Love it. Yeah, that's it, man. That's what this is all about. So I really appreciate your perspective and your experience. And I think a lot of people can learn from it and benefit from it and use it in their own lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Preston, man. This is good stuff.
Thank you both.
All right. Well, we'll do it again soon whenever you're ready, or if you got something you want to promote, the first, storefronts opening up or whatever, you just let me know and we'll have you back.
All right. Thank you, Carson.
All right, thank you.
Matt.
All right. We'll see you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Grit Growth Podcast with hosts Carson Stefanelli and Matt Webster. We sincerely hope you were inspired by the interview and found at least one useful tool or tactic to implement in your own life. Now, level up by taking immediate action. Apply one lesson learned to your life as soon as possible to make sure it sticks. Post it and tag us to increase accountability. You can join the Grit Growth movement to restore American grit to its former glory by building an unprecedented force of conquerors, both in business and in life, at www.gritgrowth.org and wherever you're active on the socials. Please also drop a rating and review on your podcast app, as it goes a long way in helping the movement gain traction. Now, don't let this inspiration go to waste. Commit to conquer. Lead your life. Leave a legacy. Gather your grit and go get after it.